Warning. This program contains strong language, auditory violence, and mental nudity. It is intended only for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to your uncensored home for World of Warcraft news and opinions. With your host, BLIZZCON. This is Unshackled Fury.
After an historic BLIZZCON 2023, our feet are sore, but our hearts are full, as the future for World of Warcraft is the brightest that it has ever been. So welcome back to your uncensored home for World of Warcraft news and opinions, Unshackled Fury. I'm your host, BLIZZCON. This is episode 136. And on today's show, it's all things BlizzCon. My experience as a first-time media, the sights we saw, the friends we made, and the overall experience of the weekend. But first, as you can tell, maybe, my voice is still not quite back, as I currently record this on Tuesday afternoon, the 7th. This is about as soon as I could record, given my brain fuzziness and voice and whatnot, so bear with me. But I wanted to get something out as soon as I could to you, so you can hear all about what it was like there in person if you weren't there, or just my thoughts on some of the big items we have, including one that I'm sure you could guess, and you'll definitely know if you've seen any of my social media posts in the last few days. And I also want to let you know that if all things go according to plan, I plan on actually having a bonus episode this week in just a few days with seemingly frequent collaborator Jez Corden. We've got a time hooked up for later in the week, so we should be just having another bullshit session here in a couple of days. So lots of BlizzCon stuff coming at you, but at least for this one today, this is not going to be some, I'm not delving deep. See what I did there? Just yet. This is more going to be overall review, what happened, how things went, just kind of my experience of all of that goodness. So if you're looking for that, it's not coming yet. We have plenty of time for that. I'm sure some other shows will cover that as well. But the thing that I wanted to get to really at the top of the show, I have to give a huge shout out and a big thanks to the crew over at Bonus Roll, especially Ketra, Ease, and Manny. This past weekend was one of the greatest experiences I have ever had. And when I started this show 8 years ago, having the kind of access that I had over the weekend, it was kind of one of those pipe dreams. It was like, I think I could do this, and someday I think I could get there. And over time, I recognized I just didn't yet have the right connections, and I hadn't quite networked right, because that was just not something that I wanted to do, and frankly, I'm not all that great at. But I felt that was the right change to get to that next level, and sure as shit, getting the media access via Bonus Roll of the options they had, they gave one to me, and I'm forever grateful. And had an amazing time since Ease was there. Met Ease, one of the greatest Swedes you could ever hope to run across. Probably one of the greatest humans. Super nice, super engaging, and had a great sort of go-get-em attitude about the convention, about meeting people, about connecting with people, and somebody that I'm really happy is in a leadership position within our little podcast group here. So I can't thank them enough. Ketra's going to be in town here in about a month, so anything and everything that she needs will be on the house as far as I can make it happen. And of course, for Manny, whenever, whatever, I owe you all for the chance at the great experience that I had. So once again, thank you. Of course, got to have a metal album of the week. Special one this week, given the circumstances, the company, and all else. This week's metal album of the week is The Pick of Destiny by Tenacious D, which also serves as the soundtrack for the film of the same name. Released back in, what was this, 2006? I want to say, yeah, November 14th of 2006. So it's coming up on its birthday here in just a week. It is such a unique flavor for an album. Jack Black, although known primarily as an actor, and I know there's a whole Peaches thing with the Super Mario movie and whatever, but a truly great voice in the vein of Dio, which Dio has a guest appearance in the movie. But there's just a lot of great sort of tongue-in-cheek humor. Some truly excellent songs. Master Exploder, if you look at the lyrics, they're hilarious. But it's actually a pretty badass metal song. Power metal's probably more of the vein. The short but sweet Break-In City, Storm the Gate. Fantastic. And of course, Beelzebub, the song at the end, which is graphic. Quite graphic. But it is one that the homie Rommel and I have enjoyed for many years, and I hope everyone else does too. So if you haven't checked it out, it does follow the movie. So if, I don't know, maybe you want to watch the movie, maybe just want to listen to the album, but in either case, you can't go wrong. It's fucking hilarious, and there's some really cool stuff. And Tenacious D did play a BlizzCon at one time, so I did want to make that connection there, and that's how it all rolls together. So that is the metal album of the week, Pick of Destiny by Tenacious D. Now, coming back from BlizzCon, you're thinking, oh, everything was good. It was amazing, right? There's no rage. You would be wrong. Let's rage. For 7 years. 7 years since I've been to BlizzCon. And in those 7 years, among the other things I've said, there's probably one thing that I was looking forward to the most of all things. Was it a World of Warcraft expansion announcement? It was in the mix. Was it seeing friends? It was in the mix. Was it bumping into devs? It was in the mix. The one thing that I wanted the most was to get there, and when I was hungry, to go to the Viking truck. I had pimped out the Viking truck on this show a bunch of times. I'd read through their menu and seen the things. I had my heart set for 7 years. 7 years. I waited 7 fucking years to get my hands on something delicious from the Viking truck. Lo and behold, we descend upon Anaheim, out there in the courtyard where they have all the food trucks lined up, and the Viking truck was nowhere to be found. Apparently, it was over at some punk festival, which didn't even have that great of a lineup. There was a dragon dog, but that's not the same. No Viking truck. I could not believe it. Of all of the ills to befall this great event, we were ghosted by the Viking truck. I threw all of my meal plans into chaos. I had to scramble at every turn. I mean, not really, but it felt like it. Dinners. There were no dinners at the Viking truck. There were no Viking dogs. There were no whatever giant corn dogs, obscenely sized corn dogs. There were no tots of whatever. There was nothing. There was nothing. I even have a dog named Odin now. The timing was right. but no Viking truck was to be found. Now, don't get me wrong, I did have some other delicious food. But that was definitely a black mark on this event. A stain. And hopefully, the next time, it will be there. Viking truck, I'm counting on you. All right. Now that I've gotten that off my chest, it is time to regale you with stories of BlizzCon 2023 and all that I saw, all that I did, and all my thoughts on that one big thing. Let's go. BlizzCon 2023. It was a big one for us. No doubt about it. Warcraft, we got served. We got served well. And if you recall back to my previous episode, talked about kind of the plans, right? What plans were we making? And there wasn't really much of a plan just yet. We hadn't received the schedule as of my last episode. We eventually did, and it was very light, as we guessed. It was very light. There were only a handful of panels for Warcraft, and I think we got the most. Everybody else got one or two. It was pretty light. Everything happening in the arena, yeah. Not a lot of counter programming. So we didn't see a lot. And then, of course, yeah, there was the K-pop act at the end, Les Seraphim, which apparently the people that loved it really loved it. So awesome. There was merch to be had. Merch was purchased. As for the media plans, well, we didn't have anything scheduled, and we didn't end up having anything scheduled, and I'll get to that later. I did not end up doing any of the Raw interview episodes that I wanted to do with the homie Rommel. We just, frankly, too busy and too chaotic and too tired, and it just did not come together. So he has yet again escaped being on these airwaves. One day I'll get you. One day I will get you. He's shaking his head. No, you won't. Bonus roll group. We were around each other. We saw some things. We did some things. So we were in it, and I'll talk a little bit about what we did, but we did have some plans, and of course I did see other content creators, and some of them were hilarious to watch. Generally, we did spend a lot of time in the Hilton lobby, and people did find us. I was shocked. Again, I'm always shocked that people listen to the show or know who I am or anything like that, because apparently there are a few of you out there, and there were at least two of you that introduced yourselves, and so I now have faces to names. So Jeff at Ultramic Jeff, great chatting with you, buddy. That was nice. And Rosenstern, the Rosenstern, who now I have to think of your face whenever I record, apparently, because that's what you told me to do. He said, whenever you're thinking about somebody, listen to the show. It's you. All right. Well, there you go, buddy. I got a picture of your face plastered somewhere in the corners of my mind. So there you go. Now, what were we looking forward to? New expansion? Oh, did we get that and some more? The future of Warcraft? Oh, we got that and then some. The experiences? I'll talk a little bit about that. I don't know about that one. The vibe? Amazing. Metzen? Holy shit. And of course, I spent a lot of time with the homie Rommel. The most time that we get to spend together. It's generally at anything. And of course, that was amazing because, quite frankly, and he probably hates hearing this, I don't know, being said all over the airwaves, but he is like the coolest person I know. He's one of the most genuine people I know, and certainly keeps my chaotic ass grounded. As I'm in the hotel room, still trying to figure out what I'm supposed to wear. It's just like, Jesus, make up your mind. Putting up with me and my shit. And I did get to do a lot of what I wanted to do, so I was very happy. So looking back, like on the plans, okay, that was what we planned to do. So most of it kind of played out. Some of it did not. So Thursday, right? Thursday was the drive down. Drove down, Sacramento area, coming down 400 some odd miles. Discovered, partway into the drive that my brakes apparently on my ride were warping. And that shouldn't have happened since I just had them worked on a couple months ago. They were brand new. So that made the drive into LA very, very interesting. Way more interesting than it was supposed to be. But the goal was to make it to the hotel, to the Hilton. We stayed at the Hilton. Goal was to make it right, 4 o'clock, because that's the check-in time, 4 o'clock. And lo and behold, we made it at 4 o'clock on the motherfucking dot. 400 plus odd miles. 8 hours. We made it to the minute. So I just want to say, huzzah. It can be done. And we get there. We get to the Hilton, unload all our shit out of the ride, go down to the lobby. It's packed. People are jamming. It's already popping off. Get up to the counter. Hey, checking in. Oh, our computer systems are down. Like, boy, you picked the wrong fucking weekend for that. When are they coming back up? Maybe 15 minutes. So that's a lie. I know that's not true. So take our stuff, put it back in the ride, and like, well, we might as well go to registration, pick up our swag, and see the store and do all of that stuff. So in years past, the convention center has kind of like this area in front of it. There's the fountain and then kind of like this just open walkway that splits between the Hilton and the Marriott. And in years past, there was no security. There was nothing. We just walked right up to the doors, crammed into the doors. Then they let everybody in. They weren't even checking tickets the first year we came in. I could have just walked in off the damn street. Then in 16, they had a little bit more security, and we haven't been since. So this time seeing it, everything was barricaded off. You had to be funneled in all the way at the far end from the convention center to get into the secure area. And they had all kinds of check-in stations and security people, and it was way tighter than it used to be. People at every entrance point yelling, "Get out of here, don't come in here." Like we tried to walk in from the parking garage, and we were asked nicely to turn around and go all the way back. We kept going down and kept going down. It wasn't exactly the most straightforward process, but we get in, they scan the QR code that you have on the Access app, which is how they did everything, and they see how many tickets you have. They print up the paper ticket, and then you walk all the way around to the building, which is technically connected to the convention center, I think, but it's all the way on the northeast side of the whole complex. And you get in there, they scan that, and then you had to go up to the second floor of it, where you got your free backpack, which actually is kind of a nice backpack. It's even got a USB port on the side. It's kind of sweet. A little small, but it's pretty nice. Lots of pockets. But they also gave you a wristband, and they were colored wristbands depending on your level of access. General, I believe, was like a blue. The Portal Pass Nudniks, and they ended up very upset, I understand, because the Portal Pass didn't really end up getting them a whole lot. Those are orange, and then media, which I did get, were green. So if you saw those other colors, didn't know what they were, that's what they were. And they were put on in such a way with this cinch that you couldn't take them off. Like, I guess if you really were motivated, you could, but they were intended to stay on for the entire weekend. You don't take it off, put it back on. And I even joked with the woman. I said, well, I got a shower with this thing. She said, yeah, okay. All right. Well, should be all right. So got out of there, checked the store out, bought some stuff at the store. My son wanted some things. I think we got a shirt and some Diablo dice and an Alex Straza, a plushie. Ended up buying 2 by accident. And that second one has a very good home with my raid leader, Barian, who also met up with us. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. And I got a shacket. I got the shacket. It was pretty nice. It is pretty nice. And what was even better was they let you try these things on. Now, I don't know how many sweaty nerds were in the various shackets that I tried on before me, but I did get the right size. Of course, they were all not the right size. Nobody cuts a 2X like whoever they're getting it from, because it's way too fucking small. FYI. So got the shacket. That was great. Had to set a pickup time. Everything was done on the store. There was no I'm buying this, go up to a checkout. Everything had to be done online through the website, and then you had to pick up a time. So my pickup time ended up being the next morning, which was a good call. And Rommel's, I believe, was the morning on the second day. So picked all that stuff up, and then after that, that's kind of it for the day before, right? You registered, got your stuff, check out the store, and so like officially, right? Not a whole lot else at that point. I was very honored that for that evening I was given a couple of invites to some things, and I went to both of them. The first was a guild dinner that was for the Phalanx of Nod Guild, which our friend of the show, a dear friend of mine, Allie, is a part of. Her husband Sniper, some other folks out there in the community. They had a guild dinner at a Mongolian barbecue place called Fire and Ice. Pretty sweet. You know, jam a bunch of shit in a bowl, they cook it on a big thing, and you cook it and eat it, and it's super good. So I had a really nice dinner there. It got way packed while we were there, but if you're down in that area, I highly recommend it. The vibe was cool, the food was good, and it was nice just to sit down, put faces to names, and meet people. And you know, it's always an interesting experience when you actually see people, you know, live and in person. Had never met Allie or her husband Sniper before. Sniper Frog. Never met them before in person, but we've seen each other on a stream a bunch of times. But you know, again, it's just faces to names, and it's a cool experience, and one of the really unique things about BlizzCon that makes it super cool. So did that, and then after that, in the same complex, there was a place called, I think, Bolero, where the Starting Zone boys were having their own little get together, and Jason Lucas, a recent guest of the show, right? He invited us to, hey, come on down, which is you know, hang out for a bit. So homie Rommel and I and Allie and Sniper, we moseyed on down to that joint. That's where we met Ultramech Jeff. He was there, and I met Jason Lucas in the flesh for the first time, and ended up having a conversation that changed everything for the good. And if you recall, when he was here, I was asking him questions about, you know, media stuff. You know, what's it like to get media access? What does it look like? And we even had some other conversation, you know, off the air, just about the whole deal, the whole community in that way. And we talked about the next day, you know, opening ceremonies, and he asked, you know, I guess what I was doing or whatever. And I said, you know, I'm going to sit with my boy, and, you know, we didn't get in, but we'll find a seat somewhere. And I'm somewhat paraphrasing, and I guess if he listens, or Rommel has probably a better recollection maybe than I do, but what I recall was him basically saying, if I didn't go and sit with him and use the media access to get into the opening ceremony, that he was going to kick my ass. Now, this was in a I don't know, maybe a loving New Jersey sort of way, but he was very adamant that I not miss out on this opportunity. And God bless Rommel, and he said this before. He's like, do whatever you got to do. Don't worry about me, but I'm a warrior. That's what I do. And that was how I ended up making the decision that, yes, okay, I will use the media credential to get into the opening ceremony, which I did not win the lottery for the regular seat. Neither of us did, to get in there. And so that sort of changed the course of my experience for the rest of the convention, and just the experience of being in there for that opening ceremony that I'll get to in a minute. So we hung out there and saw some folks, and that was really great. And then we ended up going back to the Hilton. We stopped, got a couple of drink items at a local establishment that we could bring back to our room and make some drinks. And had a good time, hung out late, met some folks, and got ready for the first big day of BlizzCon. We crashed out a little after midnight, and I could not sleep. Like a kid on Christmas. Now, maybe it was the alcoholic energy drink combo mix that we had made for ourselves. I don't know. But I couldn't sleep. And so did not get a lot of sleep that first night. And I think that's just kind of how it goes. So we got up nice and early. I had an 8 a.m. pickup for my stuff at the store, and that worked out really great because, the opening ceremony wasn't until 11. General admission wasn't allowed in until 10, but media folks were allowed in at 9:30. So 8 o'clock, we were down at the store, picked our stuff up. The homie Rommel was kind enough to take my stuff back to the room, and so where I went was up to the north side of the whole complex where the arena is, and on the northern end of it, they had a sort of green standing sign there that I wish I'd taken a picture of that said media entrance. And so that's where we were to gather. And when we were out there weren't really that many people there. And so I found a spot to post up, and I ended up meeting Dunkirk out there, also of the Warcraft Radio / bonus roll family, and met a few other folks, a mod from the WoW subreddit, and I know that there are other folks there that I know their names, but I don't know their faces, so frankly I don't know what happens. And then at a certain point, Jason Lucas showed up, so we were hanging out there, and sure enough, just by dumb luck. Now, we had been told that not all media would be allowed in through the media entrance, that it was going to be very limited. Then we were told everybody that had a media pass would have access to the opening ceremony, but again, seating may be limited, and I think that's why everybody showed up. And then when it came time to get everybody in, one of the handlers, one of the staff, right, comes right up, basically to where I'm staying, goes, okay, I want everybody in a line here, a line here, and a line here. So I was right in the goddamn front, just by dumbass luck. I was like the third person in line. They open up the doors, and mind you, we can't see anything. There's like a set of outer doors, and there's interior doors, but we couldn't see anything through the interior doors. So the exterior doors open up. They let, I think, one other crew in first who had definitely been there longer, so they should have gotten in first. So they got in, and then they just started letting us in one by one, and they were counting it off. So I have a feeling they still only let so many media in, but we walk in, and the first thing I see is as we came in on the right-hand side, if you're looking at the stage, we came in on the right-hand side, and it was my first look at the stage, this new stage setup that they had that in person was really impressive. And so I did take some photos like right as I was walking in, so I'll always have that sort of image burned in my brain. And we got in there, and they showed us where the media section is. We weren't on the floor, we were kind of up in the first set of stands there. So we all kind of filed in, and it was the Warcraft Radio group and Jason Lucas and myself, and I think it was Laurentium and Mr. GM. So that was kind of our row, and then we had a wonderful community manager from Europe. I think it's pronounced Varaya is her handle. She was on the end of the row there watching it with us, and so we had some time to hang out and chit chat and introduce ourselves and that kind of thing. And honestly, if you're media, this is like a lot of how this networking happens. You just kind of end up in the same space and like, oh, who are you and who are you? And nobody knows who the fuck I am. So I'm trying to be good about introducing myself and this and that. And so luckily, at the same time, my raid leader, Barian, got in. He was literally in the section right behind me. So I saw him for the first time there. And then somehow the homie Rommel managed to sneak himself in. So just knowing that all three of us were in there at the same time was pretty special. And that was great. And so finally, right after, I was waiting quite a bit of time, opening ceremony starts, and it's all the hype and hoopla, and Overwatch, they get their stuff out there, new character, that's all great. Malga, it's basically Maui, but better, it seems like. That's pretty rad. Diablo, new expansion coming, didn't say much about, but super cool. Glad that they got that. Hearthstone, Warcraft Rumble, like all the other franchises are coming out. No StarCraft, no survival game. So any of us that were hoping for those, oh well. Then it came time for Warcraft. John Haidt came out for a minute. Ollie Longdale came out. Got some classic news, right? Doing classic Kata, which just, that's a whole other thing. Maybe that's a future Rage segment. yeah, I don't know about that. The Season of Discovery, though, or whatever they're calling that actually sounds pretty cool. I'll give them that. But then it was time for the main event, right? The main event. Chris Metzen, my personal Lord and Savior. You know, when Holly said, you know, Chris Metzen, and out he comes, and we all just lost our shit, you know. Stood up, standing ovation, right? Going crazy. And yes, it is true at one point, I did yell out, "I love you, Dad." You can't really hear it. I think I was too far away, but I know he heard it. I know he heard it. So, you know, we're pretty excited about that. But before I get to the Warcraft stuff, I probably should rewind a little bit. Is about 15 minutes before, and you can check the timeline, about 15 minutes before the whole thing started, I had posted a tweet about my final wish for BlizzCon, about what I was hoping for. And right about that time, we were heading back to our seats, right? Or we were kind of milling around, and Ease introduced me to Varaya, the community manager there, and she asked us. She said, "Well, what do you think is gonna happen here? What do you think you're gonna see today?" I said, "Well, you know, I know we're gonna see something new. Obviously, hoping for a big Warcraft expansion." I said, "But you know, the thing that I'm really hoping for is I want to see an Anduin return where he's got like the Captain America beard, and you know, he's got like that kind of epic moment or whatever." And as I'm saying these words, her eyes start to get very big, and she kind of makes one of those like holy shit faces, you know, with your kind of like, you're like sucking your lips and going, you know, that kind of thing. And she says something to the effect of, "I think you're really going to like today." And both Ease and I were like, holy shit. Like we you knew, because we knew something at that moment. Like we knew, like we were like, oh shit. Like this, it's going to happen. And so with that playing in the back of my mind, right, knowing that something that I have wanted and have been saying on the show for years that I've wanted to see, like knowing that there's something even remotely like that is about to happen, like it just vibrating in the back of my mind the whole time. So Metzen comes out, right? Fast forward, Metzen comes out, and he just commands the shit out of that stage. There is nothing like Chris Metzen at BlizzCon, and to see a Chris Metzen announced expansion, and now we know not just one but three in a whole ass fucking saga. To see that in person, to be there, to experience that energy with my best friend and my raid leader, who's also a really good friend, right? You know, all of these, to have these people like all in it together is just, it's such a special memory. And again, why I'm so thankful, one, to the bonus roll crew for allowing that to even be possible. And then frankly, for Jason Lucas to kick me in the ass to have me be there. It's a top experience of my life. Having played this game for 17 years and to have been around as long as I've been around, to have done all the work I've done with this podcast and everything else, to experience that moment via those means, it was very special. And so, right, we see Metzen, he's doing his thing, right? He's getting everybody pumped up, and he tells us, and they announce that they've been throwing all these things in a pot, and a storyline revealed itself. And where did they end up? They ended up with not just one singular contained story, but something that they're calling the World Soul Saga. And we're like, holy shit, this is Metzen's like Infinity Saga. You know, he's a big comics guy. So this is like his Infinity Stone Saga, I swear. And they tell us it's not just one, it's three. The War Within, Midnight, and The Last Titan. Which, talk about shaking it up. Like, unbelievable, right? And with The War Within, you know, we're told that this is going to center on us going down into the depths of Azeroth in an attempt to save the world soul. You know, we know that there's something that's been going on down there. We're going to meet some people that we haven't met before, as always. And one of them is really cool, in my opinion. Some pretty cool paladin shit. Some really awesome zones, right? But that's the war within. That's sort of chapter 1, is us trying to get in there, get down in there, save this world soul, see what's going on. And then they told us about Midnight. And Midnight is going to be the second part of the World Soul Saga. It's going to be about the Void. The forces of the Void have invaded Azeroth, and they're going after the Sunwell to plunge the world into darkness. And somehow, in the middle of doing all of that and dealing with all of that, we're also going to be helping to unify all of the elven tribes and help the light. And then it sounds like, again, some shit's probably going to go really bad. And then we end up with what will be the 12th. So War Within is the 10th expansion. Midnight is the 11th. And the 12th, the last Titan, where we're going back to Northrend and back to Ulduar. The Titans are going to return, and we're going to find out whatever crazy conspiracy has been going on throughout the history of Azeroth and what's really happening with all these Titan facilities and some just majorly crazy big epic shit, which you knew Metzen was gonna bring. And to a person, everyone that we talked to, Metzen was a big driver for all of this, right? And I'm sure there's all kinds of great other story people that are working on this, but they constantly talk about how Metzen is the driver. So they tell us, all right, you know, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do something different, right? We're going to do this in a 3-part act, so it's gonna be super epic. And you know, there's gonna be some crazy stuff that's gonna happen, right? There's gonna be probably some major deaths. There's gonna be, you know, whatever else is going on there. But we're also going to get this in a quicker cadence than we're used to. And that was something he said we're not really going to talk a lot about further details at this BlizzCon, but that this content is going to be coming to us faster, which I'll get to a question that I was able to ask in a group interview later. Yes, I got into a group interview. Ha! You know, about this sort of cadence and what we're going to see. And then the last thing that he left us with was he says sometimes very epic things can begin with small, heartfelt moments. What you're about to see is one of those moments. And then I think he said, let the World Soul Saga begin. And lights darken, comes up, and what do I see? Anduin. Anduin sitting with Charlemagne. All right, I'm gonna kind of start and stop and do some stuff as I explain this. So at this moment, I am already losing my shit. And I have yet to be able to watch this thing without like tearing up and like having all these emotions and all this stuff, right? So right here at this first shot, right, you see him, he's sitting out, looks like a desert or a beach or something. He's holding Charlemagne, and the light, that ball of light, you know, orange or yellow, depending on who's wielding it, right, is gone. It's not there, right? And so we see that. Let's play a little more, right? And then we see him up close, right? He's got the beard, and I knew, right? And I'm already losing my shit right now. The close-up of Charlemagne looks amazing. He's, you know, close-up of his hand and the armor, just the details insane. The look on his face, right? I'll pause it here. You can see, I mean, this is as close to perfection as they've come so far. They talk about the uncanny valley effect where you know what you're looking at is fake. This one A lot of people weren't sure whether or not this was a real actor or this was full CGI. This was CGI. Like this was not taken on a soundstage somewhere. And there's a bunch of mocap stuff that they do, but this was CGI. And so you're starting to see like his face. He's beat up. He's dirty. He's bloody. He's cut up. Like he's not in a good space. Closes his eyes. You see the sun.
Anduin.
His energy. It says Anduin. You see his face, and he's just beat. Right? His music is swelling, and like tears are streaming down my face at this point. And then we see Thrall, and he kind of gives this side eye as he's out there. We don't really know his state. What Anduin's state is right here. Right? As Thrall comes walking up, like we don't really know what Anduin's like. Where is he right here? We find out real quick. He has this like sneer you can see as I pause. I'm sorry if this is annoying. He has this kind of like this. What are you doing here?
You're here to tell me we don't get to hide. Is that it?
Annoyance.
You needed time. We stayed away.
Somebody caring.
But time by itself heals nothing.
Anduin gripping his blade harder.
You didn't just come here for me.
And right here at this scene, if you look at the side of his head, like not only is seeing like all these cuts and bruises and all it's messed up on his face, but if you look at his hair, that looks like some like stress hair loss. Like he's been picking at it or pulling at it or doing something. And again, just further proof that our boy isn't right. You can see that he's wearing like some kind of a cloak like over his armor. His whole visage is really like that we last saw him in the mall, where he's not in full armor. Legs, his hands, his chest, but no big shoulder pauldrons, none of that other stuff. Like a lot of it is gone, and he just has this kind of cloak effect up on top. But you can see when you look at his face, he's tired, he's beat. And clearly here, he's annoyed.
It's the visions. You've seen them.
I suspect many have lately.
And hear the music turn now. Thrall puts his hand in the sand, which the sand looks so fucking real.
Something, someone is calling out from the heart of the world. Like a voice from a dream.
World Soul. They don't know what it is yet. And I'm just gonna say right here, I started to like, okay, I'm starting to compose myself, right? I've seen Anduin and like that swell of emotion, the thing that I wanted. Okay, I got it. Now they're talking about this thing. Okay, now I'm starting to relax. And I'm gonna let this next bit play for a little bit, and then we'll talk about it.
Something dark is coming, Anduin. The world needs your light again. My son.
I am not that person anymore! I have no light. Not after what I've seen. Not after what I've done.
You are not your past, Anduin. I trust you.
He puts his sword down. All right, so let's talk about how that plays out for a minute, because ooh, this one's hard. This one's hard. And this is the scene, right, where he lifts up his sword and you see the change in him, where his eyes, just the anger, and they go red, and he's tearing up, and even Thrall like tears up in reaction. And you see like all of these little emotions kind of happening simultaneously. And to talk about what's happening here is to talk about trauma. When you think about Anduin Wrynn, right? First was a dorky kid that was in Stormwind Keep, and now we've got this amazingly beautifully rendered full CGI version of him. When you think about his journey and the things that he's seen, right? Lost his mom very young. Lost his father in a tragic war. Was held captive basically in Warcraft's hell. Was against his will forced to fight his friends and damn near killed them all. And only by some kind of still unexplained supernatural means was he able to break free of the jailer's grasp and regain control of himself. But that just in a real person, like imagine that was a real person who this happened to, right? That person's probably not gonna be okay. That person is probably not gonna be okay. And put a little music back on here. When you watch this unfold, right? First, at least I'll tell you what this means to me and how I identify with it and why it's so emotional for me. When I look at Anduin in that opening shot, right? And he's looking out, which we know what he's looking at now, but when he's sitting there and he's just kind of looking out, the loneliness, right? That just bitter, empty loneliness, right? In that scene, it's haunting. And as any one of us who felt that at any time in our lives, right? You immediately, you know what that is, right? And so at first it's kind of like, okay, our boy's looking pretty rough, and yeah, okay, he's out here doing whatever he's doing, and something is calling to him. Now, we kind of had a sense of what it was, and then Thrall shows up. But when Thrall shows up, and he's annoyed, I remember when I was in my 20s, I had a father who abandoned me. Still alive somewhere, but I have a father who abandoned me. I had my own trauma as a child that I did not deal with until much later in my life. And so I can remember being that age, having been through some shit and having not dealt with it, and having somebody come into my life with hope and with heart and who cared and who was trying to get through to you, and you're like, fuck off. Like, please don't come near me. Please don't mess with me. Like, just leave me the fuck alone. Like, that's what that first part is, right? This person saying, I need your help. And you're like, fuck off. I don't want to help anybody because there is doubt inside. Like, I know I'm screwed up. I have done things in response to the world around me that I may not be proud of. I have hurt other people with the things that I've said, with the things that I've done. People who I love, but I don't know what to do with myself because I don't have those tools yet. And here comes another one who's trying to help and says, I need your help. There's something very serious. And like, fuck off. And then when you see Thrall put his hand on Anduin, and you see what is so very clearly a trauma response where it's almost like a little shake. right? Because it's that PTSD moment where it's waking something up in him, and it harkens back to that moment in the Shadowlands when Varian put his hand on his shoulder. Now, it's interesting to me that he's not wearing the same gear he was in Shadowlands. He's wearing what he's wearing now and looks how he looks now. So I don't know if that's intentional or if that's just him kind of remembering that moment and having that shock come back to him or whatever it was. But then you see that rage well up in him where it's all of those feelings of disgust and self-hatred and loathing and fear and unworthiness, in his case especially, right? All of those things coming up, but he pulls up that sword and he holds it up in a vein so similar to Arthas. Everybody picked up on it, right? And it's this stay away from me. Don't come closer. Baring my fangs. I will attack. Right? That trauma response of you don't know what to do with these feelings. All you know is anger and hate and aggression and all of this, negativity. We're told no emotion's good or bad or whatever, but that's all of that coming forward. And you see how the stress, right, of all of these things, this treadmill in his mind that never ends, this hamster in a wheel of all this negative thought, right, that just goes on and on. And the only thing he knows how to do is follow whatever this voice is, because at least it probably gives him something to do. Because wandering the mall or whatever it else was, that didn't help. That didn't do anything for him. And now here it is, another real situation where they need a very specific thing out of him, a very specific skill that he did at one time have. It says there's no light, right? There's no light. Like he's it's kind of like suppose this is like a Last Jedi thing, right? Like Luke, like he's cut himself off from the light. And there was doubt. There's been doubt for 2 expansions, it feels like, of whether or not he could connect to the light. We know that at one time he had a little play with a tendril void there. A little voidy tendril in his hand. Remember that book? Madeline Rue? So we know that there's been this concern, this fear in him for a while. And so on one hand, they want something from him that he believes that he can't give them. And then on the other, I'm also just a terrible person and I've done these things and I can't get away from this. And so as somebody who has lived certain experiences, I recognize that, and it crushed me. Absolutely crushed me. I was sitting there with my face in my hands, just tears streaming down my face because it just cut so deep to the core of me, of that feeling of failure, the feeling of guilt, the feeling of abandonment, like I said, the rage, all of it, right? It all comes to the forefront. And I don't know, depending on who you are, I don't know if you ever get past all of it. But that's what we saw with Anduin. And what I found on a second viewing, which was also very beautiful, was when he's standing there and he's holding the sword out of Thrall and it's shaking. Right? It's shaking, like his hand is trembling. And he's pointing it at Thrall and it's trembling. And as Thrall steps in and the point of that blade just touches that leather strap on his chest, it stops. Still. Right? Sort of indicating that the Thrall is this calming force, right? Still that mentor, right, for Anduin. And then I'll let the rest of this play out so we can move on, but then we get to the rest of the cinematic, which also had another big surprise.
Hear me.
They're getting worse. Look, whatever's coming, I'll stand with you. Of course I will. But we were drawn here by the voice. Who is it, Thrall? Who's calling out to us?
I'm not sure yet. But that sword was aimed at someone.
And then we find out, oh yeah, the guy that yelled out during Metzen's presentation about doing something about the sword. Boy, you knew Metzen was pretty happy when that guy yelled that out because it was right on topic. Then we find out, okay, right, the sword, this is all these threads, like they said, all these threads are going to come together. And Anduin agrees to help, and it looks like Anduin will be part of the story, right? And I'm sure we'll be dealing with some stuff, but coming out of that, I was messed up, and Varaya, the CM from Europe, she was very kind to me, and we gave me a little hug, and we talked for a few moments, and like it fucked me up. Like I didn't know what to say at first. Like after watching that, I was just kind of like stunned. And I've watched it a bunch of times. They've had it playing in the halls, and I think doing it this way and just sort of starting and stopping is like the only way that I can like get through it, I guess. But I've seen a bunch of people like shit talking it since then, right? About, oh, Anduin's crying again. Oh, this and that, you know, shitting all over it. And here's what I can say about that is, okay, maybe you're trying to be tough guy. Okay, whatever. You know, maybe you've never experienced that kind of trauma in your life. I showed it to my son and he was like, oh, that's cool, right? You know, well, I guess I've done a good job then because he was just like, oh, okay, cool. You know, nowhere near the level of reaction rate that I had. But what's so beautiful also about this to me is, one, you know, it's just visually it looks amazing. But secondly, they're trying to tell a more mature story. And you go back to, you know, cinematics of old, you know, big bads or things going on or whatever. Like, this is emotionally, texturally so rich. Like, Anduin hasn't just like grown up here right before our eyes, but he's become more complex. And to me, that's way more interesting than just, oh yeah, you know, he's a good boy and uses the light and he's confused and young or whatever. Like, This is a more interesting hook, and I know that that's not going to be the main focus, but the war within, right? That's partly him. That's partly the world itself. That'll be other little wars within. But there is such a beauty to this on so many levels that I can't help but feel terrible for the people who can't understand why so many of us were affected by this. That the way that they, you know, animated his face and the way that those emotions rose. Josh Keaton, the voice actor, God, I really wish they'd done a voice actor panel this time, because I can only imagine what that would have been like to see behind the scenes video of or relive or hear the stories about, because he had to go to a dark fucking place to do that one. Like that was no joke. You really had to dig deep to go where Anduin had to go there. And I would have loved to have heard some of the background story about that. But at the end of the day, it's a great emotional hook. And I love that this is the turn that they took. And on top of that, we're getting an entire story arc through 3 expansions that are going to come to us at a quicker pace. My God. What an opening ceremony. An all-timer. I don't know that they could ever top this one. Sure, they'll try. But this was an all-timer. And if you haven't watched it, you know, you can watch it for free on YouTube. But I could talk about this cinematic all day. And I've already taken too much time, I think. But I'm really grateful that they went this way. And I personally appreciate how much I connect to it. And recognizing not everybody will, or this isn't their jam or whatever, but I got exactly what I asked for in this character's return, and I got it in a way I couldn't have expected, but it connects so personally. I will always be grateful for that as well. So that was our opening ceremony. That's what we saw. And then after that, it was kind of like, okay, what do we do next? Now, there was a what's next panel, right, for World of Warcraft. And I actually did not see it at the time because we took off and I was like, well, it's time for lunch. And if there's one thing I know about a media room, it's that there is a free lunch happening. So ended up going up there while the homie Rommel and Barian were waiting in line to get food somewhere else. And as it turns out, well, there was plenty of extra, we'll say. And I'm happy that my boys were fed throughout the entirety of this convention. But it was pretty cool. You know, we got our own floor, second floor of the convention, and yeah, they were checking wristbands, so I got to be up there, and yeah, I saw a lot of people up there. Bellular and Mr. GM bumped into Kexman, you know, from the Warcraft radio family. Saw all of them up there. Ran into Bethany Stout / Linksy, who you probably seen on the Wildcast. She's one of our handlers over there at Blizzard. But saw a bunch of those folks just kind of walking around. And I got, you know, free food, free drink, free stuff. I still have one bag of chips downstairs, which is like my last sort of like, hey, I got this at BlizzCon in the media room thing. But then we walked around and we saw all of the exhibits, or at least a bunch of them that we could. On that first day, walked down to the Warcraft Hall, saw the, you know, Corridor of Time, which was just a bunch of, basically just a bunch of screens showing all the Warcraft cinematics over the years. With the big mock-up of the sword, if you've seen it, the big sword down there, you can take pictures with signs that say like hashtag that sword, you know, stuff like that. Lots of demo stations around. They had the Warcraft Tavern on one end, which was really super cool. It looked like a legit tavern. Took some pictures in front of the hearth, the big fireplace they had there. It was pretty great. Art stations, a Warcraft Rumble area that was super chill. Darkmoon Fair, which got so overrun, the fire marshal threatened to shut the whole convention down. Diablo Hall was super dark and spooky, and they had the Tree of Whispers on one end and an author signing area another end I'll talk about in a bit. Tattoos were on one part of it, and those filled up quick, and those ended up being free if you got in soon enough. The Overwatch halls, well, one of them had the arena area in it, and that was pretty cool. The other one had a lot of demo stations in it, which the entire time I was there was pretty fucking empty. So if there was one takeaway that I had from the convention space itself, was that there was not nearly enough seating this time around. If you've been in the past, most of these halls were full of seats for the panels, especially Hall D, where they had the main stuff going on. There just was very, very limited seating this time around. And as somebody with a horrific back, that was a problem. And I saw a lot of people sitting on the floor and a lot of wasted space. Like the whole experiential thing, yeah, it was kind of cool to see some of the things that they had. And they had, you know, kind of big art installation type pieces and stuff like that. But you see it and you're like, okay, it's cool. But you're not really interacting with it all that much. And if you do, it's like for a moment, then you're done. Right? So I don't know why they chose to go this way. Maybe it was monetary. Maybe they really just wanted to scale it down, not having other panels going on other than what was happening in the arena. I don't know that that's the winning formula. And maybe they had good reason to do it, but the lack of seating alone was just not great. But did get to see all the stuff that was going on there. I'm trying to think. Yeah, Overwatch. There was like the Comm Tower where they had some of the Overwatch statues, and that was kind of cool. They had the Heraldric Library over in the Diablo Hall that I did not know enough about, or else I would have gotten over there in time. Apparently, it was a store. It had some super cool stuff in it. So I didn't see that. I did not get to the tarot reading. At all. But if you haven't gotten a chance, I would go to like a YouTube page or the Warcraft YouTube page or one of those ones to see what all of it looked like, because it's a little hard to describe just over a podcast. But super cool what it looked like. It did have a lot of wasted space. I will say that. But I was very thankful for the sort of VIP media treatment, making sure that I was fed and watered, so to speak, while walking around. And that part was super cool. And that was kind of our first day, for the most part. Other than that one Warcraft panel that we didn't get to, that there wasn't much Warcraft after that. And that night had the opportunity to meet up with my D&D group, which was fantastic. It was all of us, with the exception of one person, myself, the homie Rommel. It was Allie and Jen and Allie's husband, Sniper, who we talked about before. Barian, my raid leader, managed to come with us. And if you know Lance, who was the coffee guy at Blizzard for a lot of years, he was Coffee Notes guy. He's part of our D&D group. Super cool dude. First chance to meet him in person. He was so generous to us, and it was really great to meet him as well. We had a very nice time at a local Italian joint down there. I think it was Mary's, something like that. It was very nice. And before we retired to the Hilton, more Hilton shenanigans, and that was always a good time. Now, day 2, going on to day 2, it's always quieter on day 2. The opening ceremony is, I think, what really gets everybody. Plus, everybody's kind of fucked up by the second day. You've been there for a couple days at the least already. You're losing sleep. You're probably sore in one place or another. So it starts to wear on you at that point. And luckily for me, again, was able to use media access and got floor seats for the WoW Deep Dive panel. Now, I don't know if you can see me. I'm wearing my Unshackled Fury shirt. I don't know if you can see me anywhere. Managed to snag a couple seats for my 2 homies. And so we got to see Ian, fairly up close and personal, go through that panel. That was great. Again, I'll talk about all of that stuff at a later date. Then, did some more walking around and got some lunch. But I needed to get to see Christy Golden. She was doing an author signing. And I had my copy of Arthas with me, which I did bring. And I stood in line for about 90 minutes and barely moved for that time getting through that line. In fact, we went overtime. And that was pretty much because, bless her heart, Christy spent like 5 minutes with every person that came up. She was so generous with her time, and she finished that entire line, even though we went way over the time slot that they gave us. And so I did have a chance to just say hey and express my appreciation to her. She wrote a really nice inscription in my book, but when I handed it to her, she goes, this is a first edition copy. I said, yeah, of course. And she said, it'll be worth less if I write in here. I said, Christy, this thing is going to be amended into my trust. So don't worry about it. I'm never going to sell it. It's never going to go anywhere. This is now a family heirloom. So she was super nice, and getting a chance to express my appreciation to her, because to me, she's kind of like right next to Metzen in terms of like story and franchise development and the things that I love about the things that I love. A lot of it comes from her and her brain, right? So to see her and to be in her presence, she shook my hand, which I'm going to brag. She did not do that to really anyone. But for me, she did for whatever reason, and she was all messed up. And I know that's not something she wanted to do typically, but she honored me very deeply and greatly. So to have that opportunity, I appreciated so much. From there, not a lot of Warcraft stuff for the rest of the day. It was getting pretty late by the time I was done with that. As we were walking out, I did run into John Haidt and Holly Longdale. They were also super generous, and I ended up chatting with Holly Longdale for several minutes, especially she, just talking about how excited they were and how excited they are about everything that's going on. So she was just going home. I mentioned the jacket. Everybody's talked about the jacket in the opening ceremony, how great it was. Talked about that for a second. And got a couple selfies, which I did not take nearly enough pictures of this freaking event. And that's one great regret that I do have. Ended up grabbing something, a noodle truck that was there, grabbed a nice dish from that truck. Went back, ate it in the Hilton real quick. Showered up, changed, and headed back out. Kind of bounced back and forth between the Hilton and the Marriott. The Hilton DJ as annoying as ever. Super loud and obnoxious. I think more people were at the Marriott. Certainly saw more folks over there. And I did talk to Ian. Finally got a chance to take another picture with Ian. He doesn't look like he's being held hostage this time. Although I still don't quite like the lighting in it. So this will be my never-ending quest to get a good picture with Ian. I don't know. Maybe that's the best it'll ever get, but I'll just keep trying. And then we just kind of hung out with the same crew and met some other folks. Corey Missildine, I think is how I say that. Bumped into him a bunch of times. He was super cool. I know he's kind of our group, part of our group there. Snagged a pic of Rathion for friend of the show, Demeternoth. So there's just a lot of like that kind of stuff that was going on out there. I think we filmed one kind of closing piece for bonus roll, and it was just kind of a mishmash of bouncing around and seeing people, and that's sort of what the convention experience overall is like. You're kind of just running and gunning from one thing to the next, and you're seeing this person and then that, and it goes by so fast, and they're very full days. I feel like we got the most out of every day. We were up at 7, we were out until after midnight. And, to sort of paraphrase that quote, right? We just sucked the marrow out of each day as best we could to make the most of these opportunities. And it was a little dodgy getting home with some squirrely breaks, but we made it. We made it in good time, and, had some more good talks with the homie Rommel. And overall, from the moment I left my door to the moment I got home, it's one of the this is the top 10 experience of my life. Especially that Friday. It was such a special day. And so meaningful in so many ways. And again, a big thanks to Bonus Roll and the crew there. Big thanks to Jason Lucas for taking me under his fucking wing. That second day, right after the WoW Deep Dive panel, there was a group interview, which they didn't tell us shit about any of this, by the way. Like, one of the things you find out when you get this kind of media access is there's not a whole lot of communication going on unless you're one of the top dogs who's got like a pre-scheduled interview. Like, oh, there's a group interview going on? Oh, okay, cool. What time? How do I get in, right? And God bless Jason. He's like, "You're coming up, right? You're coming to the group interview." "Yeah, I'm coming. So I like basically ran from the deep dive panel on Saturday to go up to the group interview. So in that group interview, which a few folks have written up about, there was a question. The write-ups are never quite accurate. I recorded the whole thing. And I know that there were people in there that, again, I would have known by name, but I didn't know on site. And so one of the question that I basically asked was essentially, they peeled back the veil so we could see 3 expansions at one time. That's big and new for us. Is there also something new in that way for them, or is this just business as usual? And so again, what was explained to us is that Dragonflight was kind of like the test ground for how quickly can they get this stuff out, and they feel like they have a pace that they can hit. And so when Chris Metzen says they're going to get it to us faster, they seem pretty intent on that we're going to get this content kind of like we've been getting it in Dragonflight. So it's not going to take forever. As I saw the thing, we won't be finishing this in 2030. It was kind of like an offhanded comment about that, right? And then I was saying, oh, we're going to finish it in 2030. No, we're going to get this in like the next, I don't know, over the next 4 years, I would think 4 or 5 years. So that was the one question, but I did get to get into that group interview and the opening ceremony and all this other stuff. And I really, again, have to thank Jason Lucas for doing what he said he was going to do. He took me under his fucking wing, and he, if even in a lovingly forceful way, got me places and got me into places and, did things for me that nobody else did or would have done. And if you ever listen to this, Jason, I am eternally grateful to you for that. And that really meant a lot. And it made, especially that first day, that Friday, one of the most special days of my whole life. You know, as a player who's been around and done all the things that I've done and had this podcast and everything else, to experience that day was really gratifying. So thank you all. And to everyone I met, it was really a pleasure to meet everyone who came up and said hello. Folks that admitted that they actually listened to the show. It's always a shock, but thank you. And thank you for listening to me drone on for, an hour and 15 minutes about my experience here. It's a little rambling, but forgive me. I'm still kind of recovering, and only today am I able to really think straight about anything that was going on. But that's kind of my rundown of what the experience was like being at BlizzCon, and then my sort of deeper thoughts into that Anduin cinematic, because I wanted to get that out today. No time for the November trading post. I know the November trading post it's got some bangers on it this month, but I'm gonna save that for the next full episode that we do. And like I said, hopefully I'll have a bonus episode with Jez Corden coming out in just a couple days. I'm just planning to shoot the shit. I know he really wants to talk about everything that's going on. Probably a little controversy about some early access stuff. But I wanted to get this out to you, get my thoughts and impressions out there. But it was great, and everybody out there was super nice. Everybody was in a very good mood, very happy, very friendly, and it was such a positive thing overall. And it's corny to say we went back home and saw this family, whatever, but god damn it, that is how it feels. And I wouldn't trade it for a thing. All right. I think we've done enough damage for one episode. My thanks to all of you for listening. And remember, you can always follow me and this show on Twitter at Berserker Rage and Unshackled_Fury, on Blue Sky at Berserker and Unshackled Fury, as well as on Twitch at Unshackled Fury and Real Berserker. You can also join our Discord, links for which are on the profile of the show on Twitter and on our bonus roll page. Feel free to contact the show with your questions, comments, or otherwise through any of those resources or on shackledfury.com. And you can find this show wherever you get your podcasts. So once again, thank you for listening. Remember to keep your swords wet and your banners high, and we'll see you next time. Farewell.